Hello everyone, today's objectives is solving system of linear equation by elimination. Now there's a little flow chart. I want you guys to take a look at it. That's one way to think about it. Elimination method, you can eliminate x or you can eliminate y. Check whether the coefficient of x or y terms are equal. If it's yes, check whether the sign of the terms are the same. Or if it's yes, then add the equation. If it's no, multiply by the entire equation by -1. So the letter you want to eliminate, the number is the same and the signs are opposite. So if the sign is not, make the coefficient the same by LCM and multiplication. So in this case, it's just finding that this method is called elimination because we get rid of or eliminate one of the variables. So we can solve a more simplified equation with one variable. And here are the procedure of solving system of two linear equations using elimination. 1. Write the equation in standard form ax plus by equals c. Actually, you don't have to write it in that form, but as long the top and the bottom lines up. The first equation lines up with the second equation. If you have y first, then the second equation have to have y first. So you can line up anyway, but make sure you line up. 2. Use the multiplication principle to clear a fraction or decimal. So we are definitely going to talk about fraction or decimal problems that we're going to solve. Number 3, if necessary, multiply one or both equations by a number or numbers so that they have a pair of terms that are additive inverse. That means they are the same number for both x or they are the same number for both of the y. Additive inverse is one positive, one negative. So they have to be same numbers, opposite signs. Add the equation, the result should be equation in terms of one variable. 5. Solve the equation from step 4 for the value of that variable. 6. Use an equation contain both variable, substitute the value of the other variable. That gets a little confusing. I will say it to you when you get there. Number 7, check your solution in the original equation. And those are the steps. And I will demonstrate in example 1 and 2. So for example number 1, we are going to solve the system of equation using elimination. Solving the system using elimination. 2 to 3 things you really need to remember. Making sure your x, y, and number all line up. That means this lines up, that lines up, and the number lines up. Now, does it make any difference if you switch them around? No. You can have y first, x second, number, or x number y. Only thing is if you x number y, the second equation has to be x number y. You cannot change it. So everything in letter form has to line up top and bottom. That's the first thing. 2. You are trying to eliminate a letter. So the rule is the letter you decide to eliminate should have the same number and opposite sign. So because of that, if it doesn't have the same number, we are going to multiply a number to the whole equation to get the same number to cancel the other one. We are going to do a couple practices and hopefully that will give you some idea. So example number 1, if you started off looking at it, we are going to say, okay, is the x and y and number lined up? Well, x lines up, y lined up, number lined up. So perfect. That's the first thing we did. Checking on that. 2, do we have something that have the same number in front of their letter? So for example, this is 1, this is 1, this is 1. Ooh, I can look at the y and realize both coefficient of the y is 1. 3, you need to make sure they are opposite sign. So after the number is the same, do they have the opposite sign? What I'm going to do is, because their number is the same, sign is the opposite, add the two equations together. So here it is, x plus y equals 5, and then 2x minus y equals 7. So because this y, one of them is positive, the other one's negative, they both have 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the two equations together. And if you add the two equations together, x plus 2x give you 3x, and a positive y and negative y they cancel each other out. So that's why it has to be the same number and the signs has to be opposite. So now because they cancel out, that's just equal to 12 and divide by 3 on both sides, x equals 4. And once x equals 4, you can plug into the equation on the top one and the bottom one. I always like to go with the easy one, so I will plug in to the top one. So x equals 4, so 4 plus y equals 5. So if you minus 4 on both sides, therefore your y just equal to 1. Now, the order pair is going to be alphabetical order, so it's going to be 4, 1. And we're going to plug it in the first equation, 4 plus 1 equals 5. And the second equation, if you checking, if you have 2 times 4 minus 1, is that equal to 7? Yes, a minus 1 equals 7, therefore checks. And the top one will be checked. Is how you can do the problem. And it's really easy once you eliminate a letter and the other one just write down by 2 steps. That's example number 1. Example number 2. Now example number 2, there's 2 ways you can do it. Before we start, example number 2, you have to check for is the x line up, is the y line up, and is it the number line up? And yes, this case it is. Now what we're going to do is we need to decide. We need to make sure the letter we want to get rid of, the top and bottom have the same number and they have opposite sign. Now there's a couple ways of doing it. I usually like to see is it a multiple of each other, or one of them is 1, the other equation is something different, not 4 and negative 2. They can be different by multiplying by a 2. So 1 become 4 and the other one become negative 4. So one of them is positive, one is negative, and they are the same number. Or you can do it the other way, which is you can do one of them is 1, the other one's a number, so therefore you only have to multiply the top equation, in this case, by a negative 3. Again, the number will be the same, the signs will be different. So it's really up to you. So I'm going to just take the top one, bottom one multiplied by 2. The reason I choose it that way is because it doesn't have to deal with a negative sign anymore. It will only just multiply by 2, the other one multiplied by 3. It's a little bit bigger number, and I prefer to work with a smaller number and positive. If I take the bottom equation multiplied by a 2, I will usually like to write it this way. So I'm taking this equation and multiply by 2. I would like to write it out just because I like to make sure that I can follow through my step and I can make sure whoever is reading my work understand what I'm doing. So if I multiply by 2, I become negative 4x plus 6y, because we got to distribute all of them, and that's going to be negative 34. Take the top equation, I'm going to bring it down. So the top equation, I'm going to bring down the next line and write it right there. Alright, that equation is going to be just the same thing. 4x plus y equals 13. Alright, then I notice right here, my number is the same, my signs are opposite. So therefore, now I can add them together, and the first term right here will be canceled out. So this is gone because one of them is negative, the other one's positive, and both are 4. So then that's going to give me 7y equals negative 34 plus 13. That's going to be negative 21. Divide by 7 on both sides. That will be y equals negative 3. And then what you're going to do is you can plug into either equation. So I'm going to plug into the very first one. That's going to be the original equation, and that's going to be 4x plus a negative 3. I would like you put it down properly, equals 13. So 4x minus 3 equals 13 plus 3 plus 3, and then 4x equals 16. Divide by 4 on both sides, x will equals to 4. And then if you double check, they are totally match up. 4 times 4 minus 3 is 13, and then x equals 4, so that's going to be negative. If you check it, it's going to be negative 2 times 4 plus 3 times negative 3 equals negative 17. And this is just checking. That's negative a minus 9. That's going to be negative 17. There's your check. And then therefore, the order pair for this question is 4, comma, negative 3. Again, it's alphabetical order. Example number 3 is even more different. You have your x lined up, your y lined up, and your number lined up. The problem is we don't have anything that's a multiple of each other. That means just time a number. They are all different. So what I'm going to do is I need to find what is the lowest common multiple. Lowest common multiple is the smallest number, both of them. The number, this can divide into it. Or you can either do it that one, or you can do it with this set of numbers. You can do it with the blue one, you can do it with the green one, purple one. I would choose probably doing it with the second one, just because one of them is positive, one of them is negative already. I'm going to multiply the top equation. This is the term I'm going to use. They both can divide into 6. So 3 times, positive 3 times what give you 6? 2. Negative 2 times what give you 6? 3. So let's see, can we get to one of the letters have the same number and opposite sign? So now what you're going to have is you are going to have 4x plus 6y equals 16. Don't forget to distribute everybody. And the next one is 9x minus 6y equals negative 3. Therefore, now it's perfect. Looking at the y term right here, they both have the same number, opposite sign. So add them together, that's going to give you 13x. The y's cancel out right there, then equals 13. Divide by 13 on both sides, x equals 1. And plug into the equation I will plug in the top one. So that's 2 times 1 plus 3y equals 8. So 2 plus 3y equals 8. And minus 2 on both sides, you have 3y equals 6. Therefore, divide by 3 on both sides, y equals 2. And then, so the answer is going to be 1, 2. And please double check your answer. So 2 times 1 plus 3 times 2 is 8. 3 times 1 minus 2 times 2 gives you negative 1, because it's going to be negative 4 plus 3. You guys try number 4 yourself. Pick a letter you want to get rid of and somehow get the number to be the same by multiplying a number and making sure the signs are opposite. So please pause it, try example number 4, and check back with your answer. The answer for number 4 is negative 4, 2. Example number 5, please try it yourself and check back with your answer. Here's the answer for example number 5. Many solutions, so therefore all the solutions are along the line 3x minus 6y equals negative 10. Just like what we talked about before, you had to write the equations. So now on to example number 6. If you look at example number 6, you probably are a little nervous because it's fraction. So because we don't like fraction so much, I'm going to show you how to clear fraction. So if you look at the first equation, you notice they have a 3, 2, 3 is common denominator. So therefore, I want you to have a common, those are their denominators. So I want you to find a common denominator of 3 of them. In this case, that will be 6. So I want you to write down, if it's 6, this guy needs multiplied by 2, multiplied by 2. This one needs multiplied by 3, and this one needs multiplied by 2. Their denominator is exactly the same. Because the denominator is the same, the new equation will be actually 8x plus 3y equals negative 4. Because you are multiplying everybody by a 6. So denominator cancel out. I skipped that step. Then the next equation, if you want to take a look at it, we are looking at the denominators 2, 3, and 3. So in this case, you should also recognize that common denominator is still 6. So if you multiply the bottom by 3, and this one need to by 3, this one by 2, and this one by 2, and this one by 2, and this one by 2. So when you multiply all of them by 6, again, denominator cancel out, but that left you with the top, which is going to be 3x plus 4y equals 10. And that is how you clear the denominator. So I'm going to use those two equations and solve it. So rewriting it is going to give me 8x plus 3y equals negative 4, and then 3x plus 4y equals 10. Now, I can look at the very first, second, or just a number to multiply and get the proper same number, opposite sign. So I'm gonna get rid of the y. The reason for that is because y is smaller if I need to multiply. So if I'm gonna multiply the front by a negative 4 and bottom by a 3, because if I distribute, I will get a negative 12 right here, and that's why I'm trying to get rid of it, and the bottom is going to be positive 12. So let's distribute them and see what do we get. So you got negative 32x minus 12y equals negative 16, positive 16, because negative times negative is positive. And then you have 9x plus 12y equals 30. And then if you add them together, you'll have negative 32 minus 9 plus 9. Negative 32 plus 9, and that's negative 23x. Then you know the y cancel out. That's going to give you 46. And divide by negative 32 on both sides. 23. Divide by negative 23 on both sides. X equals negative 2. And because x equals negative 2, I'm going to plug it in. Now plugging in into fraction gets a little crazy. Or if you do want to plug in the fractions, I will pick the ones that I can cancel out. I wouldn't put it in the top one. The purple one is just because 3 and x is not going to cancel out, but the bottom one will cancel out. So in this case, because I don't like to work with a fraction, I'm going to plug into the red or orange equations on the side when they don't have any fractions. So picking the easier one to plug it in, I'll pick the bottom one because the numbers are smaller. So plugging it in, that's going to give me 3 times negative 2 plus 4y equals 10. And to solve it, you have negative 6 plus 4y equals 10. And plus 6 on both sides, you will have 4y equals 16. And divide by 4 on both sides, y equals 4. Then plug it back. Then this is all done, and if you check it, it should be the correct answer. With a fraction, it's a little difficult, so plug into the whole number 1, okay? And then so now to write the answer is going to be negative 2 and positive 4. And that is how you take care of a fraction problem. Going on to example number 7, I would like you guys to try it. Now the only thing I want you guys to realize is for example 7, there's a number right here, is a whole number. And then because it's a whole number, I want you to put it over 1 and find the common denominator that way. You guys try it and check back with your answer, please. In the problem on the bottom is I put the negative 3 over 1, and I find the common denominator on everybody is 6. So therefore, my new equation becomes 8x minus 3y right here equals negative 18 because you have to distribute. And the bottom one is going to be also common denominator. But notice I didn't multiply the last fraction because the common denominator is already there, which is 6. So the equation right here is the bottom one, which is 3x plus 4y equals negative 1. Don't forget that negative sign right here. Okay, then what I am going to do is I'm going to try to get rid of the y right here. And to get rid of the y, I want to use the number 12. So because then 3 can multiply by 4, get 12. 4 can multiply by 3, get 12. One of them's negative, one of them's positive. So moving on to this equation. And then, so now when you combine them after you multiply everything, don't forget to multiply your 18 and negative 1. You will get negative 32x minus 12y equals 72. And so forth, and you end up getting x equals negative 3. Then I come back and using the equation that I got right here, and then I say, oh, that's 3x plus 4y equals negative 1. I plug in the x, which is negative 3, and solve it, the y equals 2. So that is number 7. So now we're going to move into the word problems. So there's a couple different ways to set up word problems. It will get easier as you start setting them up. So let's read them together. A sporting goods salesperson sells 2 fishing reels and 5 rods for $270. The next day, the salesperson sells 4 reels and 2 rods for $220. How much does each cost? Now, the thing is, usually the last sentence tells you what you want to do. So there's a couple things that I expect to see is you want to have a letters to decide what are each thing means. So I usually start with let x, or actually in this case I would like say x equals how much each costs. So in x equals the price of the reels, and the y equals the price, because usually last sentence tells you what they want you to find of the rods. All right, so now what you're going to do is selling 2 fishing reels. Well, the price of the reels is going to be 2 times x, 2 of them. And x stands for the price, so it's going to be 2x. Now 5 rods is going to be plus 5y equals that whole transaction is $270. And the next one is going to be salesperson sells 4 reels. Reels is again x. So 4 reels plus 2 rods, that's y, equals $220. And there is your equation, and just solve it. So to solving it, I'm going to multiply the top by a negative 2. If I multiply the top by the negative 2, I can actually have a 4x, negative 4x, and the bottom is a positive 4x. So this 2 can be canceled out. So let's take a look at them. So the new equation is going to be negative 4x plus minus 10y equals negative 540. Do not forget distribute every single turn. If you don't, you will make careless mistakes. Then it's 4x plus minus plus 2y equals 220. So when you add them together, negative 4x and positive 4x cancel out, and then that leaves you with negative 8y equals negative 320. Divide by negative 8 on both sides, and y is equal to 40. Then plug into the equation, and I will probably use the one that is the bottom just because it's easier. So 4 times x plus 2 times 40 equals 220. Then that's 4x plus 80 equals 220 minus 80 on both sides. You have 4x equals 140. Divide by 4 on both sides. X equals 35. So now go back answering the question properly. Do not just give me order pairs. So in this case, x is the price of the reels. So you should say $40 the price, the reels, $35, rods are $40. And that is how you do the word problem. And that's the kind of work I want to see. And that concludes our notes for elimination. Thank you so much for watching.